I'm Dr. Tori,
I'm Dr. Madison.
and today we're going to talk about anxiety because it's something we see every day
Multiple times a day.
and all ages,
Yes, correct.
which is, I think, something that we talk a lot about how it can show up. It shows up so differently throughout, but it comes up so early. But typically, which is true even with both of our own personal experiences, it gets addressed typically once you're teens, maybe early 20s, when
later in life.
yeah, when it starts becoming debilitating, but there were warning signs.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like that's what, like you kind of mentioned, we have so many conversations about it, but even my own personal experience, I had debilitating anxiety all of high school to the point where I had to get on medication. But really it all stemmed from when I was much younger, and I just didn't realize it until kind of now and looking back. But there were signs even from when I was an infant, like colicky, fussy, just starting to show that nervous system was potentially dysregulated from that young age, and maybe I just didn't realize it. So kind of going back to how can we help kids and kind of why we're even doing this today, because we've experienced that ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and it's so powerful because we say all the time, like, the things that people come in for our help with, we've personally walked through.
Yes.
And so we're not just talking about it from a hypothetical experience, but we also really like empathize on, I know what it's like to be where you're at. Obviously I don't have a memory of it, but even colicky baby, like I was a C-section baby. I was super colicky. My mom tried 20, 30 different types of formulas to try to get me to settle, and how that turned into chronic gut issues, and how those gut issues really were the first indicators of that high stress response, that dysregulated nervous system that came online. And then in high school, started getting migraines. And you think, oh, okay, well, now we have this isolated incident, this isolated gut issue, isolated migraine, when in reality, it was that low-level chronic stress response that eventually kept creeping its way up to the surface.
And that's such a good point, because even it's just a small thing such as migraines, you think that's just a one-off. Oh, I didn't drink enough water that day, but then they come more and more chronic, and it really does go back and stem from even from the infant, and when the dysregulated nervous system, even potentially from the stressful pregnancy or the C-section, emergency C-section, things like that really are going to make that impact. So even for both of us, even when I was younger, I had separation anxiety from my parents. When I was young, I would cry, I would have big reactions, which not just a normal kid toddler reactions. I'm talking like I was like throwing shoes and stuff. Like I was just very big reactions, high energy. So it really, for me, started such a long time ago, and to even now have to kind of break all those patterns as an adult. So years and years of this and my nervous system being in that state of fight or flight, that stress mode, to have to kind of go back and revert that is so important. Is why we're doing it for the kids, because when we're starting it younger, reverting those patterns, it's going to be easy, and we're setting them up to not be in the position that we're in, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's saying if we would have had this as an option, back to colicky baby, how would that have changed the trajectory of what we experienced? Because things just start adding, and then like adding and adding until it becomes something. And those were all these warning signs that, and not even to our parents' fault, they didn't know to look for. Because, and I love what you said, because you said not just like a quote unquote normal child, because one of the biggest pushbacks that when we start talking about emotional regulation is toddlers are going to be toddlers. Toddlers are going to have tantrums. And what we're saying is, yes, a toddler will have big emotions. A toddler will push back. But a toddler should not be screaming, crying, hitting, biting for 2+ hours unconsolably. You know, we shouldn't be 8 years old screaming, crying, hitting, throwing things, and being unconsolable for multiple hours. And so it's saying, hey, you know what? When we talk about these things, we're not just talking about, oh, okay, we had a grumpy morning. We're talking about these big reactions that parents are saying, I don't know what to do to be able to step in.
Yeah, and not just big reactions occasionally, like big reactions every day. The smallest little triggers will set us off, or even no triggers. Sometimes there's no reason for us to be having a big reaction. And I feel like something that people talk to me a lot about is that emotional regulation component of it, and they don't know how to help it. They don't know what to do They're coming in because they're seeing this problem and their kids being aggressive, or their kids hitting other kids, or they're throwing things and they're having these big outbursts, and they're almost asking, can this even be fixed? Is this even possible to change at this point? And kind of going back and being like, yes, we can 100% help with this. Speaking from personal experience, of course, it just takes that time and consistency. And a lot of these kids have been dealing with patterns like this for very long periods of time. And so really just doing the consistency with the chiropractic care and coming in and getting those regular adjustments can help significantly.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and it's another good point you bring up, because it's the exhaustion that the parent feels by the time they get there, and saying, hey, you know what, I've tried so many different things, I'm exhausted, and also like maybe I'm overreacting. Yeah. Maybe this is quote unquote a normal reaction, and really just affirming, hey, you know what, we don't have to feel this way. And it's sad because parents will say, mom told me just the other day, she's like, I want to go to MOPS, which is her mom's community group at church, and I want to be able to put my child in the childcare they have, except for because of his emotional dysregulation, when she goes and she picks him up, the childcare attendant, well-meaning, says, have you ever tried discipline before? Like, he's poorly behaved, unconsolable. Have you ever tried discipline? And she feels like, of course I've tried this. You think I'm here and I haven't ever tried discipline before? This has been going on for so long, I'm exhausted. But now she has that guilt of feeling like, I can't go to MOPS anymore because I can't take my child to childcare because now I'm embarrassed. And that's when you really start saying, hey, you know what? When it starts impacting other areas, there are tools that we can absolutely give you support and help you. That does not have to be the normal.
Right. And that day to day, we want to change, we want to make better. So even a few different times we've had parents come in and they're talking about bad reports at school, bad reports at daycare, things like that, or even just going to a restaurant and trying to have a simple dinner is not doable. Huge reactions, even just the anxiety of going to new environments can be really stressful for a lot of children. And that's an early warning sign too, going into a different environment, whether that be a doctor's office, even just anywhere, Target, and them being stressed out, anxious, not wanting to, things like that is a really key indicator that maybe there is something underneath, like a dysregulated nervous system causing some of this anxiety that they're feeling.
Yeah, 100%. Those transitions. Like if they're starting to feel really hard, it's a lack of bandwidth in the system that we can absolutely get looked at. And so I think really what I would tell moms, because to really say, hey, feeling like, is this normal? Is this not normal? Because there's what we call common but not normal. One of the coolest things that we get to do here is scans. And so it's not just, hey, this is or is not normal. It's saying, hey, let's quantify, where is your child's nervous system actually at? Let's put on paper. Let's have a metric. Let's track the metric. Let's follow up with progress. And so it's not something you have to think, is this normal? Is this not normal? It's something that we can actually give you a metric and that we're going to track and that we're going to be able to really put on paper to help see where your child's at.
Right. And even a lot of times coming in, doing those first initial scans, parents are sometimes even shocked by what they're seeing, because you just don't really know until you see. And so to see that your child has been in that state of fight or flight, and even coming in and having those conversations with us and knowing that there's hope, there's somewhere to go from there. We can change this. We can change the day-to-day. We can make it better. We don't have to go to Target and have a crying big reaction. We really can change that and have more good days and less bad days. So.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what's so cool, because when you follow up by having a tool and a metric to have that initial starting place and then following up with a progress exam, it's like consistency and change takes time. And so it can feel like, hey, are we making progress? And we check in with that first progress exam and go over scans, and we've made huge progress. It's just internally. And then we say, hey, you know what? We're gonna make the progress internally before we're gonna see the response externally and symptoms, because symptoms are just the tip of the iceberg. And when you get to follow up and show parents the progress on paper, it's that look of hope. It's that look of saying, wow, this is incredible. I can't wait to see how this continues to change my child's life.
Right. I'll put that on there.